listening to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm so excited about this episode. We have brought back our friend, one of the many people who I consider to be a friend who I've never had the pleasure to meet in person.
Emily Liou. We do have a few of those.
I have a lot of those. What are you talking about? Half of my friends are people I've never met in person. Though I have made progress in the last year on meeting some people in the flesh.
Now that we can get out in the world and meet people during COVID, if you made an online friend during COVID, you probably didn't even have a chance to meet them for a year or two.
Maybe you're meeting them now. Mm-hmm. But Emily is, I would love to meet her. Emily, if you're ever not in California, hit us up. Or if I go to California, I need to hit her up. We have had her on the podcast 4 times. This is the 4th appearance that Emily has made, and for good reason. Because Emily's expertise on the job search coaching front is such a good compliment, if I do say, for what Kristen and I do. Emily has made a name for herself over the past number of years, helping people with the more, I guess I would call it the more tactical and technical aspects of finding a job, whereas you and I, Kristen, are more like, I don't know what I want. I have no direction. I feel like I know what I don't want, but I have no idea what I'd rather be doing. And I really need to get clear and find some direction. That's our forte, obviously. But once people have done that level of work and they do kind of know what they're aiming for, then working with someone like Emily is really helpful because she has this really robust program where she walks people through all of the ins and outs of the technical side of job searching, like how to network and rules of applying for jobs online and interviewing and negotiating. And just, I've actually gone through much of her content, and oh my God, the scripts that she has in there, and like the copied, like you can almost like copy and paste things and edit them for yourself. It is so helpful. So anyway, she's a godsend. We love her.
We're always collecting more questions that we want to ask Emily from clients or just from things that we're hearing. And we really wanted to get her take on job searching in 2024 because things are changing so fast. Technology is changing so fast. Just the whole landscape is, I feel like there's always new things to consider. So that's why we're having her back on. Yeah. Again, it's like, how many times can we have her on and we still have more questions? I mean, that just tells you how much is in her brain.
At least 4
we're trying to glean.
We last had her on in the fall of 2022, and I just think that things are very different now. And so you're going to hear us get into things like, you know, what the job market is like now, which is pretty difficult. I'm not going to lie. I haven't had anyone recently say that it's been fun or easy. I've rarely had anyone say it's fun, but lately it seems like, at least in the US, it's a very difficult market for someone if you're looking for a job. There's so much competition. It's really hard to get visibility, like maybe harder than ever before. And there's also new elements that like legitimately weren't really in the mix a year and a half ago when we last had her on, like ChatGPT. Like literally it wasn't a thing, or at least not to the public. It wasn't a thing. And now people have potentially taken it too far. I don't know, but it's affecting how people are job searching. It's affecting like how you're resumes even, and whether it's even getting seen. So there's just so many new things that we're like, I think it was smart to bring her back on because we have new questions. And I think this was a really, really helpful episode. I can't recommend her and her work enough. So you want to read her bio?
I will say at the beginning of this, I was feeling very discouraged on behalf of all job seekers, but Emily has this magical way of bringing it back to the core. And by the end of the conversation, I just felt really hopeful again. So just know it might start out like, oh my God, everything's hard. We're going to get you to a good place by the end. So stick it out.
Yeah.
But yes, let's get into Emily's bio. Emily Liou is a career happiness coach and job search expert at Cultivite, who helps professionals make wildly successful career transitions, even when they don't have all the skills, experience, education, or go-to network. As a former recruiter and HR professional for Fortune 500 companies and Silicon Valley startups, she knows exactly what allows professionals to stand out, get visible, and get hired. Emily strongly believes life is too short to not wake up happy on Mondays and has been featured as LinkedIn's top 10 voices to follow in career and job searching for 2022. As the creator of her ultimate job search course, Happily Hired Formula, Emily not only provides strategies to make any career transition possible, but also coaches them through building a positive self-image to go after their biggest dreams. And she has a free masterclass, which we mentioned at the end of the episode, and that we will also link to in the show notes if you want to check out some of what she's got to offer for free.
What's the name of her masterclass right now?
I believe if it's the same one I've got here, it's How to Land Your Dream Job with More Income and Impact Without Applying Online and Wasting Time.
Right.
Good title.
It's like, we want all of those things, please.
Yes, please.
And like, yes, it is actually possible. And she's given us multiple examples in this episode of people who got jobs without ever applying to a job. Like, more of that, please.
Sometimes there wasn't even a job.
There was no posting.
Was created.
Right. Like, such good examples that, hopefully will uplift you and make you feel a little bit better about what it's like right now. And hey, even if you have a job, this is really helpful in case you think that you might want to be transitioning at some point in the near future. Or if you know someone who is job searching, please forward this episode to them. Okay. Like, this will help them so much, I think, to probably change and edit their job search strategy so that they're not as burnt out and that what they're spending their time on is actually really effective and most likely to get them the job. So
seriously, anybody job searching right now needs to hear what Emily talked about in this episode. So do your friends and family a favor and send them this conversation.
Okay.
Well, so shall we dive in?
Yes, we hope you enjoy, and we will be back at the end.
Hi, Emily.
Hey, Emily.
Hey, Rachel. Kristen, I'm actually really excited to see you because usually you're not on these interview expert.
I know. I've missed seeing your lovely face. I know nobody else can see your lovely face, but I'm glad to be able to say hi to you.
I know it's been so this is, I think I counted right. This is the 4th time that Emily has been on the podcast.
Does that make you our most frequent guest?
She's got to be either the most frequent or tied. Like,
yeah.
I know we've had a number of people.
Honor.
Yeah. We've had a number of people be here 3 times, but you definitely are at the front of the pack with 4 repeat guests.
And we have our celebrity name, Kremily. Remember?
Kremily.
Yes. Oh, I forgot. That's so good.
That's right.
Well,
ask Kremily.
It's been about 1.5 years. I think it was like the fall of 2022 when you were here last. And about a few weeks ago, I kept getting inundated with like stories and questions. And I was like, I need to talk to Emily again, because so much of the stuff that's happening now feels new and different than when we last talked to you about the job search world and the market.
So fast.
It feels like night and day. So, I want to start out with an anecdote and I want to hear your take on it. Okay. Because I keep hearing from a lot of people, like friends, clients, job searching feels harder now than it has maybe ever felt in like their entire career history. And I'm seeing people I'm thinking of 2 different friends right now who are incredibly qualified and have been job searching. And one literally recently applied for a job, and she has a really stellar resume. She worked at like an incredibly well-known name brand organization, like in a pretty high profile role. The role she applied for was, I think the hiring manager was someone she had 50 mutual connections with on LinkedIn. Like the dream scenario, right? Where like you're qualified for a job, the person hiring, like, so many people, you can like network, and there's all this vetting that's probably already gone into you. She reaches out to that person like on LinkedIn, like tells her, hey, I just applied for this job. Crickets. I mean, the woman never replies. She never even gets looked at for this job. And it is insane that someone with her background and with those connections completely ignored. I had another friend who was job searching for much of last year, and she has like a 10-year career in at least 10 years in corporate marketing. She has an MBA, and roles where she was like, I absolutely, like, if I'd applied for this role 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, would have gotten an interview for this. Like, undoubtedly, I have applied for roles like this in the past and gotten interviews. The fact that I'm not even getting like looked at for these makes no sense based on like how well qualified I am for this and how, educated I am. It just makes no sense. And I feel like I keep hearing versions of this story. Yeah. And I want to know, like, are those just a couple of anecdotes, or is that indicative of a larger theme in 2024?
It's definitely the latter, because I also have a lot of clients who have shared very similar. Like, I never had any issues landing interviews and offers, and now I cannot even get an interview. And there's definitely a lot at play. Like, the job search landscape has changed incredibly fast. I actually read a pay scale survey like the tail end of 2023 that came out, and they actually attribute it to 3 main reasons, and it makes so much sense. So the first is it is an employer's market now. Like, there's been mass layoffs, and from the biggest tech companies that also have really big brand name recognition. And so all these people are entering the marketplace, and there's more competition. But also, it's kind of like a dating app. Like, they're getting so like a buffet of people, and they're candidates in this case, and they're having a really hard time deciding who they want to commit to. So this is why now with interviews, you might hear like there's 6 rounds of interviews or 7 rounds of interviews. And the truth is, like, hiring managers don't even know what they want, because when they get to the interview, they're like, oh, I like this about that person, but they're missing this. And now let's like vet the next person to see if they have this, this, and this. So it's just because they have so many options, it's so hard for employers to make a really sound decision. The second reason is because of AI. And what's really fascinating is a lot of companies are relying on AI tools to help them vet out candidates that are perfectly qualified. But again, it's not a human really making a decision. But there's also 2 other factors with AI. Like, the first is a lot of companies are using them to create job descriptions. And so like even most perfectly qualified candidates are reading these job descriptions, and they're like, oh, I don't check those boxes, so I'm not going to even go for it. Or it doesn't like fully capture the essence of what the role, what the company culture is. And they're just like, okay, I'm going to like ignore this one. So I always tell my candidates or my job seekers not to spend so much time analyzing and evaluating a job description, because they're really truly just copied and pasted, or I don't know, just like a lot of words to sound nice together, but not really accurate to what you're going for. And then on the flip side of that, a lot of job seekers are relying on AI tools, and it's making them look suspiciously generic. Like, I actually put out a new job posting, and I asked 3 questions in my interview process for them to fill out, just like a paragraph. And over 75% of the candidates had the same identical answers. And I knew like they used AI or ChatGPT and were like just copying and pasting the answer because they were all the same or like a variation of the same thing. And so I automatically discounted them. But also, I see in a lot of forums, like recruiters and HR are using tools where you can actually paste like somebody's text and it'll give a percentage scoring of like what's the probability that they used AI versus something authentic that they created. So for anybody listening to this that's like, oh man, I rely on ChatGPT, like I love it as a tool as a starting ground, but you still got to put your own human element, your own human voice into it. And so then the third like reason is there's just so many applicants that, to your Brett, the anecdote you used earlier of your friend who messaged the hiring manager, I feel like people are just so inundated. Like there's so many people who are trying to message. And I like, yes, a lot has changed in the job search landscape, but one thing I mentioned in the last episode was that it's so important to have conversations. And I actually mean like, wow, this person actually knows I exist versus like having a connection or a conversation, but not necessarily knowing or guaranteeing that they looked at your message. Because I know a lot of hiring managers and recruiters right now are just getting inundated in their inbox because everybody's trying to stand out. So yeah, that's, I guess, the main theme is that you need to be able to stand out, but you have to do it in a way that has a human element to it. Because a lot of companies are just like, there's so many candidates to select from and everybody starts to look the same and they all start to sound the same. So how are you standing out is going to be the biggest question in 2024.
Okay. I think we're going to have to dive into that, all of those things like in detail. And we actually did have questions about AI for you, because to me, that's like one of the biggest differences between literally ChatGPT like came out between the last time we talked to you and now, and then people are using it all the time. And I have a lot of qualms about that.
Well, I think people are using it and companies are using it for screening. So on both sides, we've got this AI interfering with the human to human process.
But I want to go, because we talked about it being an employer's market and we talked about AI, and so let me first go back to the fact that it's an employer's market. And because another question I had for you was that, to me, that's how it appears. But there is this interesting trend that you see in like the media where they're like, oh, there's like a job shortage and there's a labor shortage and it's so hard to hire good people. And then yet you're also having people say, I can't get a job. And so like, where's the disconnect? And my theory, I'm curious what you think, Emily, is that it's an employer's market for like white collar jobs. And that where the shortage is in more service industry jobs and like skilled labor type of roles, where they maybe have more of an advantage. And that makes perfect sense, because how many millennials and Gen Z, our parents were like, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. And so now everybody's got a college degree. And now we're not as valuable as the people who didn't go to trade. There are not as many people went to like trade school. And so now we like really need electricians and we need plumbers and we need like mechanics and we need, people who are willing to like drive trucks and stuff like that. And so they, like they have maybe an easier time. It's not as competitive and they can maybe command more. And so I think that's what's going on. Do you agree, Emily?
I 100% agree. I feel like when you're hearing about the news of like labor shortages, yeah, it is the service-based industry. It's kind of like what the pandemic started, like anything that was frontline service delivery. But now with white collar professionals, they say on average, there used to be about 200 applications to each job opening. And now some companies receive, like, especially the bigger, like more reputable companies that everybody knows and wants to work for, they receive over 1,000 applications per job opening. This is like for a project manager, and that again becomes the hard part because there's so many project managers out there and everybody has the same credentials. Everyone has the same titles. Everyone has the same experience, the same like skill sets. And so it comes down to, well, how do I stand out from another project manager that's also been laid off or is wanting to make a career pivot? So yes, that's the employer's market for white collar professionals, labor shortages for the trade skilled, more blue collar, minimum wage professions.
Okay.
Jobs.
Okay. So I feel like there is this discrepancy in my brain of, of, if I was a job seeker right now, what would feel really challenging to me is, on one level, it's really important to stand out. And you've been mentioning that. And I think we've all been feeling that because there are so many applicants for every role. You really want to make yourself stand out in some way. And you also have to get through the AI screening to even get seen by a human, which means you have to check a lot of certain boxes, right? To get past the robots.
Yeah, it's a little, right.
So,
it's like I have to blend in so the robot lets me in, but then after that, I got to stand out.
Right.
So the human, it's yes.
Right. So I don't really what my question is, except have you figured out anything that seem to stand out in a way that doesn't completely rule you out because now you're too far out?
Right. The AI is like, this person is irrelevant. Their experience does not align with how I am programmed to search or whatever.
Yeah, no, it is really important if you're going the application route that you're playing that game of, okay, how do I best align myself? And in many ways, you are blending in to what other people are doing and saying because you're highlighting your relevant skill sets. But this goes back to the adage of networking is so important, or like connections are the way to go. I'll give you an example. Like I actually just let go of one of my project managers on my team because I'm doing a whole restructure. And at the same time, I was like, this project manager is too good to be unemployed. And so I sent a message to my network to just say, hey, is your company looking for a project manager? And she, in the same week, got 3 interviews and she has an offer and she's just jumping right in. I have another client who she's actually in my job search program, but I have something called a Target Dream Job Worksheet. So I was looking at it and I was like, oh, she wants to help online entrepreneurs that are mission forward, basically be a community manager for them and help facilitate workshops. And so I'm really plugged into that network. And I basically sent off her resume and was like, hey, does anybody have a need for this? This is what she's looking for. And she has 2 interviews this week. And again, it's not so much like she applied online. It's not so much that my entrepreneur friends even have a job posting out there. I basically was the conduit to be like, here's what this person's talents are. Do you have a need? And these entrepreneurs that are hiring managers, they're like, yeah, actually, we are at a place where we're thinking about going that direction. We don't have a job posting yet, but I want to talk to this person and see if there's a mutually aligned fit. I feel like this is when you think about the hidden job market. It used to be a term that a lot of people used before the job board days of like, how did you land that job when there wasn't a job posting? But so much of, to me, like job searching can be as effortless as like, it's just me knowing my value and who I want to serve and what I want to do and finding, okay, where do those people hang out? Like, what are those online or in-person networks or forums? How do I just start sharing my message? Because you never know who knows of who or what and like the opportunities that exist. So when I work with my job seekers, I emphasize like have more conversations than applications. Don't sit there and like, we have all seen those LinkedIn posts where people are like, I applied to 200 jobs to get 1 interview, like it feels falsely productive or it feels productive, but it's falsely productive. Whereas if, again, you can share your message with the world of like, this is what I'm looking for. I just believe that there's always mutually aligned opportunities that kind of show up as you show up.
So yeah, absolutely. So if somebody had, let's say they're working in a job now and they don't want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours searching for a job because they already have a job, right? And they need to be a little bit more strategic with their time. You would always emphasize focus on making connections versus just submitting applications because of all of the challenges we just described, the number of applicants, the anonymity, the feeling like everybody's looking very similar background wise, and not to mention the AI and the technology that might be screening you out before a human ever even sees you, your time is much better spent interacting with humans from the get-go.
Well, I think it's about having equal amounts of conversations to applications or more. So, like, if you're applying online, don't just apply and leave it to chance and be like, okay, let's see what happens. Employers love proactive candidates. Employers love candidates with soft skills of knowing how to communicate, how to share your value, how to represent yourself, because you're going to therefore represent the company, or, that's what they're looking for. So, to me, I feel like if you're applying online, the best thing you can do is follow up, find the recruiter, find the hiring manager, find somebody at the company that you think is going to know the insides of that role, but ideally the decision maker, and at least introduce yourself. But a lot of candidates, where they make the mistake is they make it all about me. Like, their message is about, like, I want to work for your company because I can do XYZ, or I want XYZ. But something that, again, this goes back to the human connection and the human element being so important more than ever with technology and AI, is going back to, like, what is it about this organization? What is it about this mission? What is it about this particular job that really drew you? And how do you want to add value to that? So, again, just like a lot of job seekers, when I get messages, because it looks like I'm a hiring manager on LinkedIn, so many of them are like, hi, I'm a project manager. Do you need someone like me? I have XYZ skills. And it's like all about them. And I'm like, And sometimes they don't articulate what they can actually offer and the value that they bring. So they're like, you can check out my profile if you are hiring. And I'm just like, no, like, it's your job as a job seeker to make this easy. It's your job as a job seeker to communicate your value, because if you're expecting a recruiter or a hiring manager to, like, analyze your background and try to put the mismatch of pieces together and create a narrative, they're not going to do that. That's not their job. So for any job seeker out there, it's worth taking a step back, having clarity, really clarifying, who am I? What do I want to offer? How do I offer that? And take some time to craft a really intentional, meaningful message that shows it's targeted to one particular company, one particular mission, one particular person. Because if it looks copied and pasted, people can smell that from miles away. And as much as you're putting in the effort, it's not going to yield the results that you want.
That's really good.
Which means the approach has to be more quality over quantity. Absolutely. Because you cannot do that 50 times a week. You can easily apply to 50 jobs a week. You cannot take the time to find the right person and then craft a message that actually is specifically meant for that person and do that 50 times. You can't do it.
Yeah. My client, Sunny, actually, she's a perfect example where she was doing the mass apply out of desperation. She was like, I need to find a job as soon as possible. My H-1B is going to expire. Like, I need another company to transfer this to, because she got laid off. And so she was doing the mass apply, like 50 jobs a week. Let's see what comes through. And within 2 months, she had 0 interviews. But then she started working on, okay, like, what is the actual type of company that I want to work for? If I'm not operating from, like, I'm not safe, I'm not secure, like, I just need anything, what would I want to actually target? She did update her resume and her LinkedIn to, like, really align herself to that clear target. But what she ended up doing is she sent 4 messages to the hiring manager of her dream organizations, even when they didn't have an opening. And of the 4, she ended up getting 2 interviews. And she went through both interviews. And, like, literally in a span of a month, she ended up getting 2 offer letters. So, like, all
for jobs that didn't exist.
Yes.
To the public, like, it wasn't those. Yeah, she didn't apply to anything.
Yeah, one of the people she messaged was like, "Oh, like this is really a great timing because I actually just got promoted and I'm looking to backfill my position." So they had a conversation, and then the other one, she just connected with like, I don't know if you guys are ever hiring, but I love your product and I'd love to be able to help you scale. This is what I've done in the past, and that like casual conversation ended up turning into we actually do have a need. Would you like to formally interview for this upcoming role?
That's amazing. So you've talked about getting really clear and crafting a message and telling a narrative, telling the story of that's going to be that's going to help you stand out, right? That's what we were talking about before, is the importance of standing out. So when you're crafting a message, I know people are going to be thinking, well, do you mean like, are we talking cover letters? Like, what's the deal with a cover letter? Are they irrelevant in 2024? Is there value?
I have so many questions about cover letters. Yeah.
What's up with cover letters?
Do we need them?
No.
Do certain industries need them? And some don't. Don't use ChatGPT to write them, or do, yeah. What are your thoughts about using a cover letter as part of your standing out process?
Yeah. So as a recruiter, we would always look at the resume first. And if the resume was jiving with everything, like, yes, this person is qualified, this person is a good match, like good meaning like I could see the potential here. Like maybe they meet 70% of the requirements. Great. Let's bring them in. Like we wouldn't even really look at the cover letter. Now, the cover letter, if the job description says required, like we will not consider you without a cover letter, then that's the only time I would spend time on a cover letter. And a lot of companies do this for two reasons. Either one, they're looking to make sure you know how to follow instructions, because you'll be surprised at how many people don't read and they just, again, mass apply, and you're already just disqualifying yourself.
Right.
Second is if the position has a really strong writing, like it can serve as a writing sample because you're going for an editing position or a content writer position, then that could be a really good reason why companies will require or request a cover letter. So if it asks for cover letter, I would utilize it. If it doesn't, then I would just really focus on the resume and making sure that you're aligning yourself to the resume. I will also say, like, a lot of times people put in the cover letter, like, the reason, like, again, if you're a career pivoter or your background doesn't seem like the traditional, air quotes here, traditional candidate, then that could be a good time to kind of give some context and really allow yourself to bust those objectives or objections that are coming through. But again, a lot of times people or recruiters on the other end are not focusing on the cover letter. They're not really reading the cover letter. They're wanting to know, does your background, your resume align to this job? And if yes, regardless if you have a cover letter, they're going to bring you in for a phone screen. When I talked about like messaging people earlier, what I coined that as is a solution message. It's just no more than 3 paragraphs, maybe 2 paragraphs. So it's like a very short cover letter that is very intentionally written for a recruiter or hiring manager, basically introducing yourself, your connection to the organization, the mission, like why this is so exciting for you. And then the dot or the connection should be like, what I would love to do for you. And here's what how I'd like to add value to your organization. If there's a mutual interest, I'd love to connect. But what that does is, again, a lot of times people are not sending really well-crafted messages. They're making it all about themselves versus the company or the reader. So what that does is it allows that person to be like, oh, that's really interesting. Kristen sounds like a really great, thoughtful candidate. Let me pull their resume out of the pile. Let me like dig for their application, and actually guarantees that you're being seen by a human rather than just sitting there in the pile of resumes.
Okay. So don't necessarily focus so much on a traditional cover letter, except for those instances that you described. So if they're specifically asking for it, or there's you want to connect some dots for them because it's not as obvious, but for the most part, the messages are going to be much more.
Or you want to give them a good writing sample because the type of job that you're applying for is very heavily, writing or communications focused. I feel like that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're an engineer, you really need a cover letter. No one cares, right?
Yeah. And then as far as the AI question, like, do you use ChatGPT to write your cover letter? I love using ChatGPT as a starting ground for anything. I'm a big proponent of trying to work faster and easier, and I think it could be a really great tool. But what you don't want is to just copy and paste that whole message into a Word doc and send it off. This is where you really get a chance to be like, okay, I have a starting ground. Now, what do I want to edit from here? What do I want to add? What do I want to delete? How do I make this sound more like me? And let it give you like the bones and the foundation and the structure. But if you're just copying and pasting it and sending it out, it's not going to be like accurate, because I've tested it. It's not fully accurate. But two, it's going to be so clear that you did not write this. And this is really where you don't want to go into the interview feeling like, oh, but I represented myself a different way. And they're going to be like, who is this person showing up? They don't talk like this, right? So it's important to be your authentic self throughout this job search process.
And like, to be honest, I've seen a number of examples recently of people using ChatGPT. Like, I had a friend who's working on trying to build a portfolio because she has a virtual assistant side business. And so she was just trying to get it to write her bio for her. And very simple, right? And she gave it kind of like slightly different prompts so that it came up with 3 different options for her. And she asked me to like look at them and tell me if I had a favorite. And I was like, 2 of these are heinous. One of these I could heavily edit if I had to. But and then, oh my gosh, our friend Amanda, her husband, as a joke, had ChatGPT write her a love letter. It was terrible. I was like, well, I'm glad that ChatGPT is not going to be taking over like writing jobs anytime soon, because ChatGPT, I'm a much better writer than ChatGPT. So absolutely, like, I guess, sure. If you want to like if you want to edit, it can be easier, I think, to start with something and then whittle it down and change it and edit it. And great. Like you said, I would not be comfortable with anybody just using exactly what they got back and then copying and pasting it. It's not going to represent you well. And also, like, that's just like having ChatGPT write your online dating profile and then like
expecting to connect with a true partner.
Right. Like, that's not you.
Right.
So, okay.
I'm glad we all agree on this.
Yeah. So, okay. You mentioned earlier that like, companies are getting, especially some of these bigger name companies are getting so many applicants, like 1,000 or more sometimes. And you see that like when you're scrolling on LinkedIn and you're looking at jobs, you see like 200 people have applied to this job. When you see like 50 people or less have applied to a job, I feel like you get excited because you're like, oh, wow, I might actually have a chance of getting seen at this job. But you absolutely do see like 900 people have applied to this job. I want to know, and you might not know, Emily, but as a natural skeptic, I'm like, how many of these are legit? Like, are these statistics trustworthy? Because I think a lot of people, and you've probably seen this too, get really discouraged when they see that and they just don't bother. And I just would like to hear your take on, like people who get discouraged when they see that. Like, how much of it is legitimate though?
Oh, such a great question. So, what I'll share is like, as a recruiter posting a job, you post it to your company website, and then usually your applicant tracking system is connected to different job boards, and you get to select different ones to repost or redistribute. And then anytime they apply, they come into your portal. So that's how most applicant tracking systems work. And when you see like LinkedIn has 30 job applicants, that's just from the one source of LinkedIn. But that same job could be posted on, it's most likely on the career web page, but It could also be redistributed to Indeed, Glassdoor, all the different job boards. So what you're seeing isn't like the only number. Now, that being said, LinkedIn, I have seen like kind of a flaw where they said if it says the number of people applied, it actually means like the number of people clicked. I don't know if that's true or not. But regardless, my rule of thumb is if you are wanting to beat the applicant tracking system portal, the best thing you can do is apply within the first 24 to 48 hours of a job posting. Because what happens is usually a job is posted, then a flood of resumes start coming in, and the sourcer or the recruiter will start to look through them, and they will bring in like typically 3 to 5 contenders to have a phone screen with. Once that happens, the position or review is kind of on hold. They're like, okay, let's see how these 3 to 5 do in the phone interview, and then let's bring them into the second round of interviews. And then from there, it's like, okay, let's see how they do before we bring in more applicants. And so if you've applied like day 3, and then, sometimes it's like this job has been posted for 30 plus days. It's still posted because they haven't closed the requisition, but chances are they're not actively reviewing all of the resumes coming through. They're just looking at, okay, the first 3 to 5, how are they performing? And at the end, if nobody accepts the offer or no offer is made, then they go back into the pile and they're like, okay, let's continue looking through who's applied. So a lot of times people get discouraged because they're like, oh, this is the number of applicants that are in here. But I think if you just look at it from a time perspective of like, okay, this is a fresh job. I'm going to try putting my application in to try to guarantee my visibility that way. And be like one of the first initial interviewers, then you actually have a higher likelihood, regardless if that job posting has already received 100 in the first day.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Focus more on how new or, focus on timeliness rather than how many. Because you're right. Even if 100 people apply in the first day, you still have a better chance of getting seen than if I still feel like, 50 more people apply over the next month. I feel like they're still going to be focusing on the people they got at the very beginning, even if they never get to 1,000.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So that's my job search strategy. Like if I were to job search, I would probably think about, okay, what are the organizations that I would really want to work for based on what I've done and research? What's, like if I'm looking for something local, what's near me? And I would probably just go to their career page and like put in a spreadsheet, like each of the career, like the direct URL to that career page. And I don't know, like once, twice a week, like go through them and see, has there been a new job posting from this company? Because if, again, you can get in at an earlier time, that's wonderful. But also, if you have that list of companies that you want to work for, what I would really do is focus on how can I earn a referral at this company? How can I get to know someone at this organization and have an informational interview so that they can get to know me? I get to share like what I would like to do for this organization, because those are the types of people who will be like, oh, we're actually hiring. Can you hand me your resume? Or by the time I'm like looking at their job posting in the future, whether it's a month or a few weeks from now, and I see a job posting, I don't have to necessarily go and just apply online. I have a contact that I could be like, oh, by the way, like, thank you so much for connecting with me a month ago. I saw a new posting. Do you know anything about this opportunity? I'd love to know more. And again, that's generally where I said earlier in this conversation that having somebody advocate for you or having a connection is just going to open up so many more doors.
Yeah. And that makes sense. We just trust people who have some sort of connection. And obviously that's not, like you're saying, it's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee, but it's going to help you a lot more. Obviously, my friend had 50 mutual connections with someone and still no response.
But they may not have even seen her LinkedIn.
I know, which actually brings up a follow-up question about that, which is if you send someone that kind of a message, like a networking message, a solutions message, and they don't follow up or they don't respond, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, okay, guess that didn't work, and they move on. Like, do you recommend following up after a certain period of time? And like, how many follow-ups is stalking, I guess, is my question.
Your friend who has mutual connections, I'm curious if she's had somebody actually ping the hiring manager.
Reach out to one of those mutual connections and have
That's
her.
a great idea. I haven't asked her, but I can go back and I suggest that to her. Like, you have 50, somebody has got to be willing to like send a message on your behalf, someone who might actually currently work with her.
Or have a personal email beyond.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people who aren't actively job searching are not spending a lot of time on LinkedIn because it's not as relevant for them at that time.
Yeah. So that's like a lot of assumptions that we make, right? Like, oh, I sent this email and nobody responded, so they must not be interested, is kind of where we default to. But I don't know. What if that person doesn't log into LinkedIn and they never saw your message? So for somebody like your friend who has connections, I can't emphasize how meaningful it is to have somebody be like, hey, my friend so-and-so saw your job posting. They're so excited about it. They actually applied already, but I wanted to just say, like, I can vouch that this person is a good worker, or like this person is reliable, or this person has a great personality. I just did that recently for the project manager on my team, and the hiring manager was like, yes, it means so much that you've already like given her stamp of approval. Like, I don't even have to go through this major vetting process. Like, it's aligned. Let's move forward. Right. So that's just an opportunity. But going back to your question of like, how many follow-ups, I feel like we live in this world where we're always so busy. We're always so distracted. And like, we have the best intentions of getting back to someone, but something else comes up. So to me, when I work with my job seekers, I tell them to follow up 3 times in total. So initial message, didn't hear anything in like 7 days is a good, like, if they didn't message you back in 7 days, chances are you're at the bottom of their priority list. So 7 days later, let's follow up, hey, Rachel, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I just wanted to follow up on this message as I'm very excited about blah, blah, blah opportunity. I can only imagine the number of applications you get. But if you have some time to review my background, or I can answer any additional questions, I'd love to connect. Something as simple as just putting that at the top of their inbox. And then the third, like if like 14 days go by, 2 weeks, you still haven't heard back, this is generally where I'll leave the ball in their court. Hey, Rachel, I hope your week is going well. I wanted to just follow up one last time in case there's a mutual opportunity to share what I can do for your organization. And again, you might go into your background. And then at the very end, I would leave the ball in your court, in their court. So it could sound something like, no worries if this isn't the right time, but if there's ever any interest in connecting, you can reach me here. And there, you just left it with them. So now 3 times I've done what's in my control. I've done what's on my side of the street. I can't force anybody to take any action, or I can't force or control their feelings or what they're thinking, but I've done what I can, and now I can just bless and release.
That's good. That's a good rule of thumb.
I'm really happy to know that, because I intuitively, that sounds right to me, like that timing and everything. But I think that this is the kind of thing that people just overthink, and they really don't want to like bother somebody. And I think to a degree, it's okay to like send people more than one message. And if they don't want to respond to you, they don't have to. Like,
but I would reframe the bothering someone to like, I'm being proactive because I genuinely want to help this other person, right? Like, as a job seeker, you're not bothering anyone. Yes, you need a job, but typically like that person needs a person to help them alleviate all the stress and all the deadlines and all the missed projects that are not happening because they're looking for someone like you. So I think a really important reframe is like, instead of I'm bothering them, like, I want to help them. I want to support them. Like, I want to be of service to this person. And I think if we can really ground ourselves in that, then everything else becomes a lot easier to take action.
That makes sense. So another question for you. I wonder, and you don't have to have any statistics or anything, but I just wonder from your experience working with a lot of job seekers, how often does it happen that companies are posting a job that they never actually intend to hire for externally, but they're just going through the motions? Because I know that some companies, I don't know if this is legal, I don't know what the cause is, but they are required to post it even if they already have an internal candidate in mind.
Yeah.
And I wonder how often that's happening where they're not really even reviewing anything because they already know who they're going to hire. They just have to check the boxes.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I don't know the statistic or number, but I do know in my recruiting days that happened quite often where we already had somebody internally or somebody like had a referral that they knew they wanted to bring in. Like the hiring manager was like, I've worked with this person before. They're interested in this opportunity. Let's bring them in. But like for equal employment opportunity, you still need to post the job publicly and have it up for at least 7 days to show like we really looked at all the people that came through and this is the best hire. So I don't know this statistic, but this goes back to a lot of times it is the connections, it is the referrals that get in the front of the line. And yeah, I wish this wasn't a standard hiring process because it really does like waste the time of well-intentioned job seekers that really need a job. But as far as I know, that's still a practice that happens.
Yeah. I just want to throw that out there too, because sometimes people will take getting a rejection or even getting ghosted from job after job after job so personally. And sometimes it's this scenario. Sometimes
like that wasn't even a legitimate job posting in the first place.
They had somebody else in mind. So that might be going on. It is discouraging. It is frustrating. But it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with you or how you're applying in those instances.
Oh, totally. This is why I say, like, do not take rejections personally. And at the same time, like I've had a lot of job seekers who have gone through interviews, but because they did that, even if it wasn't a real job, I don't know if it was or not, but like they took that as practice to either one, like feel more confident and comfortable going into their next real interview or like the more aligned opportunity. Or two, I've actually had people who like they went in for an interview at a company. They didn't get that particular job, but because they were able to make connections and really like bond and have a good rapport with the hiring team, they like opened up another role for them or they redirected them into like, well, our company's large and we have this other opening in this other department. Would you be interested? So it's, to me, like it's always about putting your best foot forward, again, controlling what you can control. Like I'm going to control my preparation. I'm going to control showing up on time. I'm going to control like being the best version of myself. And then just, this is the hard part for a lot of job seekers, especially when you're in survival brain, but like there's this trusting of like, I know that the right opportunity, the aligned opportunity will come. And again, that's hard to get to if you're like in desperation, I've been unemployed forever. I need a job as quickly as possible. It's hard not to take that rejection personally, for sure.
It's a really good perspective though, because you're right. Even the jobs that you don't get hired for, or the jobs that maybe they were never intending to hire externally anyway, that still might mean meeting people in that world that you want to get into, which might indirectly lead to the right opportunity. So it's not wasted effort.
No, not at all. It's inconvenient.
Yeah. But it's annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying.
But it might not be wasted.
Okay, I have one last question because we came up with the whole list. I have one last one on my list here for you, which is that I feel like obviously remote jobs, flexible jobs have become much more of a thing, but I also wonder if I think they must be more sought after just because, I mean, most people probably want something that's more flexible. I mean, I know some people prefer, don't love remote because they're more extroverted and they can't imagine working at home all day long. But I think a lot of people are very attracted to that. And it must make those jobs, I'm assuming, even harder to get because the candidate pool is so much bigger. Like if you're hiring for a job that is based in, Los Angeles, and you have to show up 9 to 5 in Los Angeles, then your pool is only going to be but so big. I mean, even in a major city like that, it's going to be huge, but that's so different than like it's based in Los Angeles and we hire remotely from anywhere.
You could be anywhere in the country.
Could be anywhere, or maybe even just like we want someone on the West Coast so we can be on the same time. Still, huge candidate pool. So I'm assuming that's probably that they're more competitive for that reason. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I know what you're going to say, but I want to ask you anyway, like, is there anything we should be thinking about differently when it comes to like looking for remote jobs or applying for them or standing out for them? Or is it like, no, the same thing that applies across the board?
The latter. The same thing applies across the board. Is that the answer you thought I was going to say?
Yeah, I figured. I figured it was just like, it's the same process. It's going to be even more competitive probably if you're looking for, if you're going after a job that someone could do from anywhere, then you're going to be competing against people from your area, but you're also going to be competing against people from states away or across the country. So it's even more important that you stand out.
And the connections is going to be even more important because if you have a pool of 1,000 candidates, I don't envy those hiring managers. I mean, what a headache. I would be hoping somebody would stand out to make my job a little easier. So you're actually not, to your point earlier, Emily, it's not bothering them to connect and message them. They probably don't want to have to wade through 1,000 applications. They'd rather a few people move themselves up to the surface and make themselves a little bit more visible. So 100. It's an easier choice on their part.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say earlier and I kind of forgot. So I'm glad you brought that back, is that I actually feel like you're doing someone a favor if you just make it easy to hire you by being like, hey, I exist and I happen to be good at this. Would you like to talk to me? I mean, if I were hiring for a job and I had like 500 applicants, I would be like, I don't know where to start. But if someone takes the time to craft me a really thoughtful message on LinkedIn that's clearly for me, that they didn't copy and paste, I'd be like, well, especially if I look at their resume and it's good and like I'm intrigued by them, it feels like a no-brainer to talk to them most of the time.
Exactly that. Like you're really doing the hiring manager a favor because they want to hire somebody, but it's like on top of their full-time job, like they're not wanting to weed through all these resumes and trying to figure out like who to bring in. And for anybody listening to this that is like, oh, it must be really difficult to stand out. It actually isn't, because a lot of job seekers are not positioning themselves correctly. A lot of job seekers are focusing more on a quantity approach rather than a quality approach. And a lot of job seekers aren't really positioning themselves in like, so I'll share, like I had a client who she actually did the solution message, but in order to get there, she held back a lot because she wanted to work for this one company in New York. And when I asked her like why, she like told me everything about the company. She was like, I watched a YouTube video of this interview with the CEO and I really love like their philosophy. And like she was able to like share the exact philosophy. She went on and on and on about like how amazing this company is. And then she applied online to a job. She got a rejection email back. And I was like, why are you not telling the CEO this? Like, clearly you are so invested and you care so much. Like you're so connected to this opportunity. What would it take for you to send this email to the CEO? And of course, a lot of internal stuff came up, like, who am I to be able to do that? Like, I have nothing to offer because I'm just an admin and this is a CEO, like really putting the CEO on a pedestal. But together we crafted a solution message and I like forced her to just hit send. And the very next day, she got an email back that said from the CEO that was like, thank you for your email. I have forwarded this to the HR. You can expect a phone interview. So again,
Damn.
Love that.
rejected online. But, when she got on the phone interview, the HR, like, she saw the message and was like, oh, like, I really love how much you're like passionate about our mission and our organization. And she ended up getting not the role that she applied for, is actually another step up in the same department. But, again, like, rejected, she could have taken that to be like, I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified for any of these. I'm not marketable. There's so many people with like better credentials, so I better go back to school. But no, she did that human connection. She had that very quality approach of like not holding back her like thoughts and what she has done in terms of her research and her alignment. She just shared it and was like, I'm going to just see what happens. And yeah, I asked her, like, did you, like, how was it when you sent it out? And she was like, I sweat so much. Like, it was terrifying for her.
Yeah.
But she got the ultimate result she wanted, and actually even better than she could have imagined. And I think this goes back to like being bold and courageous, because so many people are doing the passive apply online. I'm just going to see what happens. But this is really like declaring, I know what I want. I have a vision of where I want to go, and I'm just going to show up for myself to do that and not be attached to the outcome or the results, but just trusting, like, as I continue to do this, my favorite motto is like, it's going to be this or something better. Something's going to show up. But again, a lot of times people fall into that apply online, get rejections, start lowering my standards, take anything cycle, and it's endless. And that's really what puts you, to me, that's really damaging, because when you first start your job search, you have high hopes and you're like, this is what I'm going for. And then if you fall into that trap, this is when you start to like dwindle and you start to question yourself. What am I missing? What am I doing wrong? But it's just the approach. Same person getting different results because they're just approaching it in a different light.
It's so encouraging, because I feel like there's so many aspects of job searching, especially right now in 2024, that feel really discouraging. The number of applicants, just the volume, the technology you have to get through. It just feels like there's so many more layers to break through to even be seen, much less actually get an offer. It feels really daunting, but it's really encouraging. And I think you're completely right about this. Most people, like the vast majority of people, are not taking that extra step. So it's not as hard to be visible and to stand out as it feels. It feels like, how am I, little old me, ever going to stand out of 800 candidates or 60 candidates even?
Mm-hmm.
But most people are just doing what you're saying. They're auto applying. They're not following up. They're not being a real human.
Even if they're sending a message, it's almost certainly copied pasted,
Or ChatGPT created.
Right.
There's not any real human warmth behind it. So if you're willing to take that extra step, you're going to be worlds beyond most people. And so that's an encouraging note, I think, to kind of wind down on, because
you can do that like 5 times in 2 weeks instead of apply to 50 or 100, easy apply jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You might spend the exact same amount of time, but have, way, 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 way better results with the former.
And remember, you're doing them a favor. They don't
really
want to have to sort through that many applications that all look similar. They want somebody to stand out. So be that person, stand out. I like that.
100%. And then I guess my biggest advice for any job seeker right now that is feeling discouraged, or like you're operating from this place of, I need a job, I just need to focus on my job search. I'm going to really challenge you to have fun. Like, really put in some play and some fun into your day, and like really take care of yourself first before your job search. Because what I've also found, and we all have this situation come up where we're like depleted emotionally and mentally, and like the smallest thing that normally wouldn't trigger us like just sets us off, and we're like, like attacking, and we're really internalizing a lot. And so for job seekers specifically, you are in this landmine right now. And I feel like rejections and ghosting is going to happen. You're going to go on interviews that you really want and may not get the result that you want. And so, how do you fill up your tank so that you're not triggered as much by this bad news? Or like you can be triggered, but you're not sitting there in for like a week or, a month. So for any job seeker, because I talk to so many that feel like I can't have fun, I can't celebrate until I get the offer letter. Like I can't do anything fun or non-productive until that happens. And so my challenge to you this week is to just start making play like a normal thing and a normal activity for you each day. You'll be so much less triggered and you'll have so much more stamina to continue your job search.
Not to mention the energy of how you present yourself in writing or in interviews is going to feel so much better when you're not haggard and exhausted and burnt out.
I mean,
100%.
Avoiding getting yourself into desperation mode is so important. Like, because that energy just repels what we want and anything. I mean, but certainly jobs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, like not letting it take over your whole life and having boundaries with it. And yeah, trusting that like if I tend to my own energy and, focus on refueling myself, then I'm going to get better results than if I just keep on grinding and pushing through. Your quality is going to suffer very quickly if that's your strategy.
And you're going to burn out fast.
And like, as we've just established, quality is the most important like aspect of doing job searching in a way that's really effective in 2024. So like, you can't be doing things that are going to impact your ability to like, produce quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your tone and your energy will just be so much lighter and like more excited. And that's going to carry through to the recipient as well. It's a great point.
Well, Emily, thank you for all of this. I feel like, I'll definitely link to the past episodes we've had with you. And I feel like if you go and you listen, maybe in like reverse order to all of the Emily episodes, I'm like, you should know everything there is to know about job searching. Both like in general, but also up to date with like where we're at in this timeline.
There's a reason we brought Emily back so many times.
Yeah.
Keep having new questions for her. So this is the latest and greatest, but there's some time-tested wisdom in everything she's shared. So we will make sure you have access to all of that.
Yeah. And I was going to say, actually, there's nothing that has changed in terms of what I've shared in the past episodes.
No. Yeah.
Just now it's more important than ever because it's even more competitive. And so my whole thing has been like, you need to stand out authentically. You need to be able to get clear and targeted and intentional versus spraying and praying and doing that quantity over quality approach.
Yeah. Well, Emily, tell people in case they don't follow you yet, because some of these people might be new since you were here last, where can they find you and where should they go after listening to this?
Yeah, my website is cultivite.com. If you can't spell it, look at the show notes. I listened to some episodes, so I know the whole spiel. I do have a free masterclass that basically breaks down the step-by-step of how to land a dream job in 2024. And that's cultivite.com/training. And then I'm also on the gram. Did that sound cool? I'm on the gram at Cultivite.
Yes. And yes, Emily is correct. I will make sure that we link to all of that in the show notes. But in case you want to know how to spell Cultivite, I will spell it for you. It's CULTIVITAE.
Oh, I wish like every person on the phone was like you, because they're like cultivate, what?
No. From the second I saw it, I was like, that is the most clever name.
Thank you. You get
love a good play on words.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking to two word nerds here. So well, Emily, thank you so much. I can't wait to see how people react to this. Like, I really want to know if you guys implement this in your job search. Like, tell us what results you got, or
please leave us a comment. We love to hear how this is landing.
A comment on the episode itself on our site, or like, I'm sure we'll post about it on Instagram. And so if you want to comment there, I'll make sure Emily's tagged and she sees it too. So Thank you, Emily. We can't wait to have you back in another year or two to talk about whatever the heck the job market is doing then, and for you to give us the same advice.
We'll be like, but wait, we need it in a new way.
But we need you to say it in a different way.
Well, you guys ask wonderful, insightful questions, and there's always so much wisdom that comes out when you guys are asking questions. So thank you for having me back.
All right. Well, this is Kremily signing off.
Peace out.
Bye.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that conversation with Emily. And truly, if you switch up your job search approach at all after listening to this, we would love to hear what you're changing and then what ends up being hopefully different and better about your results after that. I just can't imagine it's not going to get better if you take some or all of Emily's advice.
It's certainly going to feel a lot better, and I know you're going to get better results because she knows what she's talking about. She's done this a time or two. So you could figure it out on your own, or you could listen to somebody who knows what they're talking about. And I tend to prefer to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, right. Stop trying to figure something out that you absolutely don't fully understand and don't care to understand. I don't care to understand job searching. I don't care to have figured it out myself. Thank God someone figured it out and then is telling me what to do.
You don't need to be a pro in this. You need to be a pro in the thing you want to do the job for. Let somebody else be the pro in how to get you the job. And then just do what they tell you.
Amen. Okay, so we'll be back next week with brand new Dear Rachel. But what I actually, on a completely unrelated note, what I want to say before we wrap up is that in that episode that you're going to hear next week, I meant to, and I forgot to make an announcement. So I'm just going to do it a week early, okay? Because we already recorded that episode. So I meant to announce that we are doing a bonus book club episode at the end of March, so in about a month from now, on the book Attached, which you guys should not be surprised about. We've been talking about attachment theory and attachment trauma here and there for a while now. Now, you don't have to read the book before this episode comes out, but if you want to, great. If you don't, I think you're going to really, really like this episode because we're bringing on a special guest who has become something of an expert on attachment theory, who is so passionate about attachment theory. And she's going to do a book report, sort of, for us about the book Attached and just about attachment in general. So you don't have to have read the book. If you would rather just hear someone's book report and then be persuaded to read it, that's totally fine. I think when people see those book club episodes, they think, oh, I can't listen to that. I haven't read the book. And it's actually the exact opposite. It's let us convince you to read the book, or let us give you the cliff notes so that you don't have to go read the book. If you want to, I'm telling you now so that you can read along. If it brings you joy to participate in a book club because you're a big ass Ravenclaw and you're I need to have read all of the homework before I listen, then I'm telling you now. For all of you Hufflepuffs, Gryffindors, and Slytherins out there, just show up. Just show up.
Just show up. Let somebody else do the hard work and just give you the highlight reel.
Exactly.
Again, work smarter, not harder.
Right. So I'm going to be hard pressed to read the full book before she gives us the book report. I am going to do it because I feel that would be out of integrity for me not to. But there's a part of me that's tempted to just not read it and be tell me about this book.
I'm actually shocked neither of us has read it all the way through. I have the book. I've never read it all the way through.
I have it on Audible and in physical paperback form, and I still haven't ever read beyond the first chapter. So it is kind of a dry, slightly more social science-y, book. It's one of those that I think some people really love, and then some people struggle to get through. And my brain is just not wired for those types of books anymore. I am wired for Sarah J. Maas, and fiction and fantasy.
Characterization. Give me a good storyline. Give me
hot men with lightning powers. That's what I'm here for these days. I want to escape. I don't need to learn anything. I'll learn on my podcasts, right? That's how I'm learning these days. But so I do appreciate someone who still really loves reading those types of books and wants to come on with all of their passion and enthusiasm and talk about it with us. So I am really excited for that episode, and I'm letting you guys know ahead of time so that you can prepare if you want to prepare. And if not, great, just show up.
Excellent. Okay. Well, the English major in me is very excited to be delivered a book report. I have spent most of my college experience and beyond delivering such things. So this is going to be fun to be on the other side of that. I'm sure it will spark all kinds of really interesting conversation on attachment theory.
And once again, to make it very clear, that episode is the very last Friday in March. I'm giving you a whole, I think, 5 weeks worth of notice so that if you want to read the book, you can. I just meant to say it on March 1st because I thought that would be so clean to say it.
Best laid intentions.
Yeah, and then I forgot to do it. So I'm telling you in February, whatever. No one ever hated more time to read a book if that's what they want. Okay.
But next week, we will see you back here for a Dear Rachel next Friday.
And there's no homework for that. Just show up.
Never.
No preparation needed.
Nope.
Just show up.
Just listen and take what you like and leave the rest, as usual.
The Ravenclaws are disappointed, but
I can always make up homework for you if you want homework, but I won't do that to the rest of you.
You gotta pay me for that. If you want homework, if that's your kink, you gotta pay me for that. All right. We will see you guys next Friday.
See you then.